All right, let's talk elasticity. I'm going to buzz through 4 different kinds of elasticity, all of which you really need to know for the AP test, because oftentimes they'll kind of throw in a little bit about elasticity or say that, hey, it's an inferior good, and when incomes go up, what happens over here. So you really need to know these elasticity things, especially the total revenue test. As you can see, the little rubber bands in the middle kind of recall the total revenue test for us. So we talk about elasticity of demand and supply, which are pretty much the same thing, cross-price elasticity and income elasticity. What elasticity measures is the responsiveness of consumers or producers, if it's elasticity of supply, to a change in price. So is the percentage change in quantity greater than, less than, or the same as the percentage change in price? So after price changes, how much does quantity change? Okay, so milk is an example of something that is inelastic demand, insulin for a diabetic. You can see the examples down there at the bottom. Hot Cheetos, of course, is a sarcastic example. Clearly, they're not that inelastic, although, I don't know, some people can't live without them. Inelastic demand is a steeper demand curve, could also be the same as a supply curve. In this case, you can see that a 20% change in price only caused a 5% change in quantity. So if the change in quantity is smaller than the change in price, we would have inelastic demand. And here's the equation for it. So remember, my favorite McDonald's sandwich, the Quarter Pounder. When you think elasticity, think Mr. Beckstrom in a pair of sweatpants because he ate too many Quarter Pounders. So change in quantity, percent change in quantity over percent change in price. In this case, the percent change in quantity was only 5, percent change in price was 20. So we have a number that is between 0 and 1. Anytime we have an elasticity coefficient between 0 and 1, then it's an inelastic good. Elastic demand, here's an example of cola. It's a much more flat demand curve, and it's exactly the opposite. So the change in quantity is greater than the change in price. Things that are luxury goods usually have elasticity coefficients of greater than 1. Here's some examples of things that are elastic and inelastic. The total revenue test is super important. You have to know it because it comes up all the time on the AP test. Most of the time when you need to know total revenue test, it'll either be on a graph where it shows the marginal revenue curve positive and then it'll show the marginal revenue curve becoming negative, or it might be on the setup of a question where it says the such and such a firm operates in their elastic range of their demand curve or their inelastic range of their demand curve. What's going to happen to their revenue if they raise price? Or their total revenue went down. What did they do to their price? So you got to know this one backwards and forwards. The total revenue test says that price and total revenue move in opposite directions when there's elastic demand or along the elastic portions of the demand curve, and they move in the same direction on the inelastic portion of the demand curve. The elastic portion of the demand curve is always on the left. The inelastic portion is always on the right. Okay, now that we've covered that, here this was a sample practice, and their elasticity of supply, exactly the same thing. Change in quantity, percent change in quantity over percent change in price. Cross-price elasticity shows relationship between goods. A positive cross-price elasticity means that goods are substitutes. A negative cross-price elasticity means that goods are complements. So it's the quantity of one product over the price, percent change in price of another product, right? So if the price of bicycles goes up, it would make sense that the quantity of bike helmets would go down. So this would be a negative cross-price elasticity because these two things go together, right? When the price of bicycles goes up, less people buy bicycles. Less people buying bicycles means less people have need for bike helmets, meaning less people are in the bike helmet market, meaning less bike helmets will be purchased. If these were goods that were substitutes, like if it was a bicycle and a skateboard, if we saw the price of bicycles goes up, we might see an increase in the quantity of skateboards purchased. That would mean that would be a positive number, right? Positive over a positive instead of a positive over a negative. and those two things we can classify as substitutes. So watch out for the positive or negative sign in front of a cross-price elasticity coefficient, because that's what they'll be asking you about the relationship of those goods. Income elasticity comes up a little bit more often, and this is referring to the idea that we came up with earlier of inferior goods versus normal goods. A normal good is something you buy more of when you get more money, and inferior good is something you buy less of when you get more money. So if the percent change in quantity is positive, when the percent change in income is positive, that means it's a normal good, right? I got more money, now I buy more 4-ply toilet paper. I got more money, I buy less single-ply toilet paper. Example of a normal good, the 4-ply toilet paper, and an inferior good, the single-ply toilet paper. If I get more money, I might buy more Coca-Cola. If I get more money, and I might buy less President's Choice Cola, less like Safeway Select Cola or something like that. So those are 4 different kinds of elasticity. Went over very quick. You should replay over the little screencast here, and here's a practice problem, practice FRQ problem that brings in excise taxes and asks you about elasticity.